The following interview is a presentation of Ofiɔ Media. I want to ask you just one or two more questions, and I would feel almost remiss if I sort of ended the interview without asking this one. It's about the future of the Republic of Nigeria, if I may ask. I heard you say in a recent interview, in so many words, you said something to the effect of, the land is there, the resources are there, the people are there. So regardless of the fate of the Republic itself, those things can be counted on sort of moving forward. But I want to go a little deeper on the question of actually the Republic. I wonder, if you could frankly appraise the Republic's prospects for the benefit of, again, a US based audience that is at most only partially informed about what's happening in Nigeria. And of course, without getting yourself in hot water in, Nigerian social media circles or anything like that. Because, the context in which I'm asking this question is that in addition to rather longstanding grievances, for example, like in Igbo land, with separatist groups like the indigenous people of Biafra explicitly referencing the Civil War and so on, you now also have a rather muscular Yoruba separatist movement as well that seems to be coalescing around either the idea of an Oduduwa Republic or at least a major kind of governance overhaul, to the extent that people are, I read an article a week or two ago that people were calling on Yoruba voters to boycott the 2023 elections. So I'd ask you again, to appraise where things stand vis-a-vis the Federal Republic of Nigeria and its future, whether the establishment of smaller ethnic republics or self-governing zones is likely to resolve the issues of economic insecurity, physical insecurity, corruption, nepotism, and so on that are so frustrating Nigerians today. And then also to tack on what's probably a more interesting question, what changes would you like to see, regardless of whether or not the Republic survives far into the future, that you think could improve the situation?
Yeah. Thank you for that penetrating question. My hope and my wish is that Nigeria survives um, for a long time. It survives forever. So that's my wish, and I've always worked for that across ethnic divides and political divides. So that's my wish. Now, right now, what we are as a country in Nigeria is at a very precarious position, where the clamor for separation, for dismembering the country, has never been any higher in its history, and it's coming across from different ethnic groups. So that is a cause for concern. And at the root of that, maybe we can pin it down to three. The number one issue is that Nigeria is supposed to have a federal constitution, which means the federating units should be able to run certain things by themselves, have certain kind of independence right. But it has on paper a federal system, but in actuality, what is operating is a unitary system where the federal government controls everything. States are not even allowed, local government even allowed to have state police for their security. Like resources that in one part of the country, they are sold and given to the federal level to distribute. Like here, Texas has its oil, but the oil in Texas is owned by the Texans, right, who happen to live there, and they may pay whatever federal taxes it is to the US government. But the US government does not own the oil in Texas and would then sell it or so, and then decides to give the Texas whatever they want. But the people in Texas suffer the pollution, and they suffer all these things, right? So that is what the people of the Niger Delta suffer, especially the Ijaws. They don't control it. And so people are saying, the Igbos, Yorubas, even other places in the northern part says, let us restructure, that's what they're calling it, so that we have an agreement about how we need to run the country. And this was the system they had before independence, made after independence, what they call the regional system, where different regions manage their own affair, like close to the federal system that we are. But the military come in, had a coup, and still put the federal system in paper, but then completely run it like a military command, like a Pentagon. There's one command all the way down. And people have seen that it's not working, it's hindering the economic growth of the country, it's hindering the political development of the country, and it's hindering the security affairs of the country. So the restructuring means that how do we reorganize how the regions or the different federating states or units or ethnic group should coalesce together, and how will the federal government manage the common affairs of the group, the universal affairs of the group, not to run particular institutions, particular federating units or so. So how do we organize that coming together? That's what the clamor is about. And so when people feel that they're not getting their way, then they're talking about going their own separate ways, because they don't feel like they control their own affairs, their local affairs, even in their own cities, not to talk of in their own states. So a situation where the state cannot even control its own security, right? So that is problematic. So that is one. So that is at the root of the problem. That's where the demand is coming from. But we cannot examine that call for restructuring apart from the endemic and pandemic corruption that is the Nigerian post-colony. So if, let's say, they are still running this ill-formed federalism, but there is transparency and not corruption, people could understand. But what is happening is that the state has become what my former professor Claude Ake called the state in Nigeria is the major means of production. So having access to state power is all you need to accumulate wealth. So people go at the federal level or even at the state level, it becomes, so the instrument of the state becomes the means of production. So industries are dying, this unemployment is high, because if you can make money through politics easily, you can make your billions. Or you may call yourself billionaires, as some Nigerian billionaires do, and they're celebrated in the international media. But the actual fact is that the wealth they've acquired is because the state are giving them monopoly powers over certain things, or they use the state power to make their wealth. It was not through being subjected to the demands of the capitalist market system. And the press here that's celebrating some billionaires don't even pay attention to how such billionaires have captured the state power and used it to make wealth. So when that kind of corruption is there, everybody wants to fight to control the center. And no one wants to give up power of the center, because if almost all resources are gathered in one place, and you can have access to divvy it up and give to whoever you want and make your friends millionaires or billionaires. The Nigerian president at any time perhaps is among the most powerful presidents in the world. I'm not talking about American president having a nuclear power. If today the president of Nigeria can make you a billionaire overnight, he can decide to say they should give you oil blocks to sell. Abacha gave oil blocks to one of his former friends, and the guy sold one oil block for $2 billion. Right? And he was bragging about it on national TV. He's now today a billionaire. So that is why the fight is there, right? Because people see that the state is deeply corrupted, both at the federal level, at the state level, and at the local government level, right? So it's deeply corrupted. So there is a fight of the ruling class about who is going to control that asset. So that also fuels this talk about we are going to stay or no, we are going to stay, because people that don't have access to currently looting the states are going to heighten that call. This is not to diminish the fact that the system is not working, but we also have to understand the context in which some of these things are happening. That very context makes me to be a little careful that even if we break up into several units, if we go to Oduduwa, the Biafra, or any other way we want to go, or the North goes away, how do they handle that corruption issue? So it will just be shifted from Nigeria as a whole to now the soft part, because the ruling class, the bourgeoisie that is controlling Nigeria, doesn't still know how to create wealth through a proper market system. And that is an issue. So it's just going to be the corruption and incompetence is going to be shifted to different sites. Now, instead of having one site, one federal site, we're going to have 6 federal sites if they broke up into the 6 current regions, right, or more. So until people address that, so that is the second problem that says we should address that, right? The corruption issue. Because if the system was competent and working well, people could get jobs and they could get their life going, there's some fairness or so, probably most of people will not be clamoring for a breakup. First, the federal system is not working and the system is corrupt and incompetent. So all that is rolling. And the third issue is this, right? Nigeria has not still come to a proper definition of who is a citizen. Because that is an issue. And we started this interview by talking about the notion of indigeneity. We still use the concept of indigeneity to define who is a citizen of a region. So that means people don't have this sense of togetherness. If I lived in Kano all my life, or if the Hausa man lives in Port Harcourt, which is the capital of my state, all his life, and if he wants anything from the government will ask him to go and get a letter from his local government where his ancestors came from as a proof that he's a Nigerian. But the Hausa man has been born and bred in Port Harcourt, and probably he speaks an Ijaw language there, or another local language. But yet you ask him to go and get a letter from his local government. In the same way, as an Ijaw man in Lagos or so, the government will say, if I need anything from the government to identify me, or in my passport, I have to go back and get something to say I'm indigenous. Right. So a person is indigenous to the space Nigeria because your parents or grandparents were born there. But you are never indigenous to any other part of the country, no matter how long you live there. While in the 60s or 50s, an Hausa man could win an election in Igbo land, or an Igbo man could win an election in Lagos. But we don't have this concept. But now we are going back to more of indigeneity, and we've not worked out the concept of who is a Nigerian citizen. It means that can I live anywhere in the country and enjoy full benefit of running for office? There was one peculiar case in one of the states in the north. There is this guy who has rose through the rank to be a director of a federal ministry. And the next promotion should be what they call the permanent secretary. That is the highest civil service position in a department of ministry. His parents has been living in the north for 3 generations. I mean, his ancestors. The post came up, and the governor, because for some political reason, they will allocate those kind of top positions, one to a state or two, and in the last administration, not this one, US state governor has to sign off. Even though he has spent all his life, the governor went and found out that guy's ancestors, 3 generations deep, came from a Yoruba land and refused to approve it. So the guy, one of the best civil servants that I know in Nigeria, retired without being the permanent secretary because the governor said his parents originally. How long do you need to? The guy even didn't know that his parents came from another part of the country. And all the time that I knew him, he was pro-North like any other person. He was never obviously Yoruba. But in the last minute, somebody went and dug up that they knew his ancestral history, and that so even living in a place for 3 generations, doesn't make you a part of the state. And the way the system is organized is that you cannot get anything from the federal government except you pass through your state. So they may say you are a citizen of Nigeria, but as long as being a member of a state is defined by indigeneity, you are not a Nigerian because that state can deny you. So even if they're appointing federal ministers, I mean, what in the US we call secretaries of department, right? It has to be allocated through the states. And so you may live in Lagos for all your life and contribute to that economy, but when it comes to federal appointment, they will never appoint you to represent Lagos in the cabinet or anywhere because you are not an indigene. Well, you speak the language, that is your home, your children, everything. You see, so we have not really addressed that issue. But I told you how the Kalabari people from day one says, if you speak the language, and if you know the culture, so much so that in a particular year of signing important document, 35% of their people were migrants. That shows, so this issue is not purely an African issue. Africans are not only talking about their citizenship in terms of indigeneity. These issues are coming up more and more in Africa because it's also part of the class struggle of the ruling class to eliminate competition among themselves, right? So if I can knock you off, if we're all from one state in Nigeria, and I can knock you, Adam, off, and there's no way to show that I'm better than you to get the post, I could say, oh, no, you know what, his parents came from other states. And that is enough to disqualify you. And everybody will be saying, yeah, Adam cannot have that post because his ancestors 4 generations ago, they were not originally from that place. But all your life, you've contributed to that place, you've died, your ancestors, people have shed their blood for that land, and then somebody tells you you're not from there. So that is part of the issue, and it really complicates. If you got the Igbos in Nigeria, they have lived everywhere in Nigeria. They spend generations, they're in the north, they speak Hausa or Fulani, they can't even speak their language. They're in the Yoruba area, they don't speak their language, right? And this issue, you ask yourself, what is going to happen to all those people when they begin to break up the country? Are you going to ask all of them to come back to the eastern region? Or you're going to make them stay there? If they stay there, they're second-class citizens, even now, they're second-class citizens, right? Because any Nigerian living in another part of Nigeria, you are a second-class citizen outside your home region, right? And so, you see, so this issue of nationhood, and I try to address some of these questions, how to build a sense of belonging in my 2019 book called Ethics and Society in Nigeria. Politics, history, identity, history, and political theory. To begin to say, one of the chapters, how do you begin to create even national myths that will begin to wedge, bring people together, bond people together, so that we have this sense of oneness as Nigerians. That doesn't mean that there will not be differences. But what we are lacking is this national concession of who is a Nigerian, why am I a Nigerian, and am I willing to be a Nigerian? Certainly, there are certain people that will answer these questions in the right way, but the numbers are very few. And even fewer in the upper classes, because fighting for position is a class struggle. And they will look for every means to divide the people.